I never thought my life would take such an unexpected turn. I, a happily married woman, or so I believed, suddenly found myself in a situation that would change my marriage forever. It all started when my husband, Jack, suggested I go hunting with his uncle Bill at our cabin in the Rockies. Jack couldn't join us due to his university commitments, but he insisted I go with Bill. "It'll do you good to get out of the city," he said with a smile, that now, in hindsight, hid much more than I imagined. Bill had always been an attractive man, with that air of an experienced hunter and that penetrating gaze that seemed to see right through you. But I had never seen him as anything more than my husband's uncle. However, fate had other plans for us. The car ride was long but pleasant. Bill and I chatted about our lives, our jobs, and of course about Jack. There was a comfort in our conversation that surprised me. We arrived at the cabin at sunset, just as the sky was turning orange and pink. The view was breathtaking, and for a moment I forgot about everything else. That night, as we dined by the fireplace, Bill told me stories of his past hunts. His passion for nature was contagious, and I found myself looking forward to dawn so we could go hunting. We went to bed early, each in our own room, excited about the adventure that awaited us. The first day of hunting was intense. Bill taught me how to track, how to move silently through the forest, how to become one with nature. His patience and skill impressed me. There was a moment when we were crouched behind some bushes, waiting for a deer to appear. When our eyes met, I felt a shiver run down my spine, an electricity that shouldn't have been there. That night, exhausted but satisfied, we returned to the cabin. Bill suggested we take a bath in the outdoor hot tub to relax our sore muscles. I hesitated for a moment, but the idea of immersing myself in hot water was too tempting. We changed and got into the hot tub, each at one end. The starry sky above us was spectacular. We talked about constellations, astronomy, our dreams and aspirations. The conversation flowed with surprising ease. At some point, without realizing it, we had moved closer to each other. I could feel the heat of his body, see the water droplets on his chest. My heart began to beat faster. "Emily," Bill whispered, his voice husky and laden with desire. "We shouldn't." But his words were lost when our lips met. The kiss was intense, passionate, full of an urgency I didn't know existed within me. My hands roamed his back, his arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer. Suddenly, as if lightning had struck us, we separated. The reality of what we were doing hit us hard. I quickly got out of the hot tub, wrapped in a towel, and ran to my room. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions: guilt, excitement, confusion. That night I could barely sleep. The next morning was awkward, both of us avoiding talking about what had happened. We went hunting again, but the tension between us was palpable. Every accidental brush, every glance was charged with a meaning we didn't want to admit. It was during that outing when Bill suggested we stay at a nearby hotel that night. "A storm is coming," he said, pointing to the darkening sky. "It'll be safer than staying at the cabin." I agreed, partly because he was right about the storm, and partly because a part of me wanted to see how far this could go. The hotel was small but cozy. We asked for separate rooms, of course, but we both knew it was a formality. That night, after a silent dinner in the hotel restaurant, Bill invited me to his room to talk. I knew it was a bad idea, but I went anyway. The conversation started innocently enough, talking about the hunt, about the storm raging outside. But soon, words gave way to actions. I can't accurately describe what happened that night. It was a mixture of unbridled passion and overwhelming guilt. Our bodies met again and again, as if we were trying to quench a thirst we didn't know we had. But with every kiss, with every caress, I felt I was betraying not only Jack but myself. My story isn't over yet. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you. Let's get back to the story. The next morning I woke up with a weight on my chest that I couldn't ignore. Bill was still sleeping beside me, his face peaceful and serene. How could he be so at peace when I felt torn apart? Inside? I got up quietly, dressed, and left the room before he woke up. I spent the next few hours walking around the small town near the hotel, trying to clear my thoughts. How had it come to this? How could I look Jack in the eye after what I had done? Guilt was consuming me, but there was also a part of me that couldn't deny the connection I had felt with Bill. When I returned to the hotel, Bill was already awake and packing. Our eyes met, and I saw in them the same conflict I felt. "Emily," he began, but I interrupted him. "We can't do this, Bill. It was a mistake. I love Jack, and this can't happen again." Bill nodded, his face a mixture of pain and understanding. "I know I'm sorry too. I never meant for things to go this far." The trip back home was silent and tense. Every mile we covered brought me closer to the reality of what I had done, to the inevitable confrontation with Jack. How was I going to explain this to him? How could our relationship survive this betrayal? When we got home, Jack was waiting for us on the porch. His smile when he saw us broke my heart. He hugged us both, asking about the trip, about the hunt. Bill and I exchanged uncomfortable glances, responding with evasions and half-truths. That night, after Bill left, I sat with Jack on the couch. My heart was pounding. I knew I had to tell him the truth, but before I could open my mouth, Jack spoke. "Emily, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice serious but calm. "The hunting trip, it was planned." I looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" Jack took a deep breath. "I've noticed that our relationship has been tense lately, that maybe you weren't completely satisfied. So I arranged this trip with Bill." My mind was spinning, trying to process what I was hearing. "What are you saying, Jack?" "I'm saying I knew there was an attraction between you and Bill. I've noticed it for years. And I thought if I gave you the opportunity to explore that, maybe you'd realize what you really want." I was speechless. Had Jack planned all this? Had he deliberately orchestrated a situation where I could be unfaithful to him? But why? I finally managed to ask. Jack looked at me with a mixture of sadness and determination. "Because I love you, Emily, and I want you to be happy, even if that means it's not with me. Our relationship has changed. We both know it. I thought maybe this would give us an answer, a direction." Tears began to fall down my cheeks. I didn't know if I was angry, hurt, or just overwhelmed. "Jack, Bill and I." "I know," he said softly. "You don't need to. Tell me the details. I just want to know one thing. Did it make you happy?" The question hit me like a punch to the stomach. Had it made me happy? I thought about the moments with Bill, the passion, the connection I had felt. But I also thought about the guilt, the pain, the confusion. "No," I finally answered. "It made me feel alive for a moment, but not happy. Not in the way that matters." Jack nodded, a small sad smile on his lips. "I understand. And now, what do you want to do?" It was a loaded question. What did I want to do? Did I want to save our marriage? Did I want to explore more with Bill? Or did I want something completely different? "I want us to work on this," I finally said. "On us." What happened with Bill, it made me realize there are things in our relationship that we need to address. But it also made me realize how much I love you, Jack. I don't want to lose you. Jack reached out and took my hand. "I don't want to lose you either, Emily, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this work." The following days and weeks were a whirlwind of emotions and difficult conversations. Jack and I attended couples therapy, facing the problems we had been ignoring for so long. We talked about our needs, our desires, our fears. It was painful and exhausting, but also liberating. Bill kept his distance during this time, respecting our space to heal. But I knew that at some point we would have to address what had happened with him too. It was a month later when I finally met with Bill. We met at a neutral cafe, away from our homes and the memories of that trip. The tension was palpable when we sat down. "Emily," Bill began, his voice laden with emotion. "I'm so sorry, I should never have..." I gently interrupted him. "Bill, we're both..." responsible for what happened. And although I can't deny there was a connection between us, I also know it was a mistake. Bill nodded, his eyes full of sadness and understanding. I know, and I want you to know that I completely respect your decision to work on your marriage with Jack. He's a good man, and you two deserve to be happy. We talked for hours, unearthing feelings and clearing up misunderstandings. It was a difficult conversation, but necessary. In the end, we agreed that we needed to maintain some distance, at least for a while. It was best for everyone. When I returned home that night, Jack was waiting for me. He didn't ask about my conversation with Bill, respecting my privacy. Instead, he hugged me tightly, and in that embrace I felt all his love and forgiveness. Months passed, and little by little Jack and I rebuilt our relationship. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, of sadness, of frustration. But there were also moments of deep connection, of shared laughter, of renewed love. We learned to communicate better, to express our needs and desires without fear. We discovered new facets of ourselves and our relationship. And although the memory of that hunting trip never completely disappeared, it became a catalyst for positive change in our lives. A year after the incident, Jack surprised me with a gift: 2 tickets for a trip to New York City. I thought we could have a second honeymoon, he said with a smile. As I was packing for the trip, I found a small box at the bottom of my closet. Inside was a card I had written right after returning from the hunting trip, but had never had the courage to give to Jack. I opened it and read the words I had written in a moment of confusion and regret. Jack, I don't know how to thank you. For this unconventional gift, you've given me the freedom to explore and the opportunity to realize what I really want. I choose you today and always, with all my love, Emily. I smiled, thinking about how far we had come since then. I took the card and put it in my suitcase. Maybe in New York, I would find the right moment to give it to him, as a reminder of everything we had overcome and how strong our love had become. As I closed the suitcase, I reflected on how to thank Jack for this unusual gift he had given me a year ago. Not the hunting trip itself, but the opportunity to rediscover ourselves, to face our problems, and emerge stronger on the other side. I decided that the best way to thank him would be by fully living each day of our future together, showing him with my actions, my words, and my love that his trust in us had not been in vain. That despite the obstacles and temptations, our love had prevailed and grown stronger. That night, as we prepared to sleep before our early flight to New York, I looked at Jack and felt a wave of love and gratitude. I love you, I said, the words carrying a deeper meaning than ever before. Jack smiled at me, his eyes shining with the same love I felt. I love you too, Emily, always. As we hugged, I knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter in our story, a chapter full of promises, growth, and a deeper, more mature love than ever before. The trip to New York was like a rebirth for us. Every bustling street, every cozy cafe, every sunset over the Hudson River became the backdrop for our renewed love. We walked hand in hand through Central Park, kissed at the top of the Empire State Building, and shared freshly baked bagels in small neighborhood delis. One night, as we dined in a small bistro in Greenwich Village, I took the card out of my purse. I had carried it with me throughout the trip, waiting for the right moment. With trembling hands, I gave it to Jack. "What's this?" he asked, curious. "Something I wrote a year ago, right after, well, you know I never had the courage to give it to you then, but I think now is the right time." Jack read the card in silence, his eyes moistening as he absorbed the words. When he finished, he looked at me with an intensity that took my breath away. "Emily," he said softly, "you have no idea what this means to me." "I think I do," I replied, taking his hand across the table. "It means as much as it meant to me that you never gave up on us, even when things got tough." That night, as we made love in our hotel room overlooking Times Square, I felt as if we were writing a new beginning. Every caress, every kiss, every sigh was imbued with an intimacy and connection that went beyond the physical. Back home, our everyday life took on a new shine. The little things we used to take for granted, sharing breakfast, watching a movie cuddled on the couch, even arguments about who would do the laundry, became precious moments we cherished. Our friends and family noticed the change in us. "You look like newlyweds," my mother commented at a family dinner. Jack and I exchanged a knowing look, knowing that what we had now was much deeper than the initial infatuation of newlyweds. Over time, even our relationship with Bill normalized. It was a slow and sometimes uncomfortable process, but eventually we reached a point where we could all be in the same room. Without palpable tension, Bill found someone special, a wonderful woman named Sarah, and seeing him happy helped us all close that chapter of our lives. One day, as Jack and I were taking a walk in the park near our house, I suddenly stopped. "What's wrong?" Jack asked, concerned. "Nothing," I replied with a smile. "It's just that I'm happy, truly happy." Jack hugged me tightly, kissing the top of my head. "I am too, Emily, more than I can express." It was at that moment that I realized that the greatest gift Jack had given me wasn't the freedom to explore my feelings for Bill, or even the trip to New York. The real gift was his unwavering faith in our love, his willingness to fight for us, even when it seemed easier to give up. As the years passed, our relationship continued to evolve and deepen. We had ups and downs, of course. Real life isn't a fairy tale. But we faced each challenge together with the strength and confidence we had built. We decided to have children, and seeing Jack become a father only made me love him more. The way he held our newborn daughter, the patience with which he taught our son to ride a bike, the bedtime stories he invented each night. It all reminded me why I had chosen him, why I kept choosing him every day. There were times when the memory of that hunting trip resurfaced. Sometimes it was in the form of an unsettling dream. Other times it was triggered by something as simple as seeing someone who looked like Bill. But over time, those memories lost their power over me. They became nothing more than a closed chapter in the story of our lives, a lesson learned that had made us stronger. On our 20th wedding anniversary, Jack surprised me with a gift, a photo album full of moments from our life together. There were photos from our wedding, our trips, the birth of our children. But what moved me the most was the last page. There, carefully preserved, was the card I had given him in New York years ago. "I never forgot it," Jack said softly. Those words, they gave me the strength to keep going in difficult times. They reminded me why love is worth fighting for. With tears in my eyes, I hugged Jack, feeling the weight of all our years together, of all our shared experiences. "I love you," I whispered, "more than ever." "And I love you," Jack replied, "always." That night, as I lay in bed next to Jack, I reflected on the journey we had made from that fateful hunting trip to this moment. We had come a long way. We had faced temptations, overcome obstacles, and grown together in ways I never would have imagined. I realized that true love isn't perfect. It's not always easy or comfortable. Sometimes it challenges you, pushes you to your limits, forces you to face parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. But it's in those moments of trial that a stronger and more enduring love is forged. Jack had given me an unconventional gift so many years ago, a gift that at the time seemed crazy to me. But now I understood that it had been the catalyst for something beautiful. It had forced us to face our problems, to communicate honestly, to rediscover each other and ourselves. And I, in turn, had given Jack the gift of my choice. The choice to come back to him, to fight for our marriage, to build together a life full of love, trust, and mutual understanding. As I fell asleep, with my head resting on Jack's chest and his arm around me, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons learned, for the love we had cultivated, for the life we had built together. and I knew with a certainty that filled me with peace that no matter what the future held for us, we would face every challenge, celebrate every triumph, and live every moment together. As the years continued to pass, Jack and I found ourselves entering a new phase of life. Our children grew up and left for college, and we became empty nesters. This transition brought its own set of challenges, but also new opportunities for us to reconnect and rediscover each other. We took up new hobbies together. Jack learned to cook gourmet meals, while I took up painting. We traveled more, exploring places we had always dreamed of visiting. And through it all, our love continued to deepen and evolve. There were still moments when the memory of that hunting trip with Bill would surface. But now, instead of causing pain or guilt, it served as a reminder of how far we had come. It was a testament to the strength of our love and our commitment to each other. One evening, as we sat on our porch watching the sunset, Jack turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Emily," he said, "I've been thinking about that hunting trip all those years ago." I felt a momentary pang of anxiety, but Jack's calm demeanor reassured me. "What about it?" I asked. He smiled softly. I realized that as unconventional and risky as it was one of the best decisions I ever made. Not because of what happened, but because of what came after. It forced us to confront our issues, to really work on our relationship, and look at us now. I squeezed his hand, feeling a rush of love and gratitude. "You're right," I said. "It was a turning point for us. But Jack, it wasn't just the trip that made the difference. It was your willingness to fight for us, to give me the space to figure things out and to welcome me back with open arms." Jack pulled me close, kissing the top of my head. "And it was your choice to come back, to put in the work, to choose us every day since then." As we sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, I marveled at the journey we had been on from young newlyweds, through the turmoil of that hunting trip, the challenges of raising a family, and now into this new chapter of our lives. Our love had endured and grown stronger. I thought about all the couples we knew who hadn't made it, who had let their relationships crumble in the face of adversity, and I felt immensely grateful for the love Jack and I had fought so hard to preserve and nurture. "You know," I said, breaking the comfortable silence, "I think our story could help other couples. Maybe we should write a book about it." Jack chuckled. "A book about how sending your wife on a hunting trip with your uncle can save your marriage? I'm not sure that's the kind of advice most people are looking for." We both laughed, but the idea stuck with me. Not necessarily to write about the specific events, but to share the lessons we had learned about love, forgiveness, and the importance of choosing your partner every day. In the end, that's what our journey had taught us. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice we make every morning when we wake up, every time we face a challenge, every moment we spend together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, I leaned into Jack's embrace. "I love you," I whispered. "I love you too," he replied, his voice filled with the warmth and tenderness of decades of shared love, always and forever. And in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that no matter what the future held, Jack and I would face it together. Our love, tested by time and strengthened by challenges, would continue to grow and evolve. It wasn't always easy, and it wasn't always perfect, but it was ours. And that made it the most beautiful love story I could ever imagine. End of story.